The cold wind whipped across the Antarctic research station as Dr. Jia Kim pulled her thick coat tighter. For 5 years she had been digging beneath the ice, following strange energy readings that no one else believed mattered. Today, her team had finally reached something special. "We found it," said Han, her assistant, over the radio. His voice was shaking with excitement. "You need to see this now." Jia hurried through the tunnels carved into the ancient ice. When she reached the dig site, she saw her team standing around a glowing object partly uncovered from the frozen ground. It wasn't large, about the size of a microwave, but its surface shimmered with symbols that seemed to move when she looked directly at them. "What do you think it is?" asked Tai, the team's engineer, his breath visible in the freezing air. Jia knelt beside the object. "I don't know, but these markings, they look like nothing I've ever seen before." She reached out slowly. Something about the object felt familiar, as if it had been waiting for her. When her fingers touched the cold surface, the symbols glowed brighter. Suddenly, the object hummed to life, projecting a beam of blue light upward that cut through the ice like it wasn't there. "Everyone back!" Jia shouted, but she couldn't move her hand away. Images flooded her mind: stars, planets, battles, ships traveling faster than light. She saw humans in strange armor, commanding fleets of vessels that darkened entire skies. When the connection finally broke. Jia fell backward. Tay caught her before she hit the ground. "Are you okay?" he asked, concerned. "I saw our history," Jia whispered. "Not what we've been taught. We were out there among the stars once. We were powerful." Her team looked at her with worry, but before anyone could speak, their communication devices beeped all at once. It was Kim, their radio operator from the main base. "Jia, you need to get back here now." Kim's voice was tight with fear. "Something's happening worldwide. All satellites are picking up objects approaching Earth. Military channels are going crazy." The team rushed back to base camp, arriving just in time to see the main screen showing news from around the world. Strange ships had appeared in orbit, massive vessels that dwarfed anything humans had built. For 3 days, the ships just waited. Governments tried to communicate but received no response. On the 4th day, smaller ships descended toward major cities around the world. They didn't attack. They simply hovered, as if waiting. Jia was flown from Antarctica to Seoul, where one of the alien ships floated above the city center. Scientists and military leaders from around the world had been gathered to try to understand what was happening. "Signal came from your dig site," General Jun told Jia when she arrived. "Whatever you found down there, it called them here." Jia explained about the object and the visions she had seen. Most people looked doubtful, but a few older scientists exchanged worried glances. "There have always been stories," said Dr. Moon, an elderly historian. "Myths about humans once traveling among stars. Most of us dismissed them as fantasies." That evening, the aliens finally made contact, not with weapons, but with a message. Projected into the sky above every major city on Earth, the image showed a tall, slender being with skin like polished stone and eyes that seemed to hold galaxies. "People of Earth," the alien spoke in perfect Korean, though Jia knew that around the world everyone was hearing their own language. "I am Emissary G of the Galactic Hegemony. Your ancestors were once the greatest warriors the galaxy has ever known, and its most terrible conquerors." The crowd around Jia gasped. 5,000 years ago, your kind controlled 1/3 of all known space. Your warships were feared throughout the galaxy. Then suddenly you disappeared. Your colonies abandoned, your fleets vanished. Now we know. You retreated to this world and somehow erased your own history. The alien's expression changed to something like fear. "The signal you sent has awakened systems that have been dormant for millennia. Ancient human weapons platforms are activating across the galaxy. The peace we have maintained is now at risk." General Jun stepped forward. "We don't know anything about these weapons. We've never left our solar system." "That was the agreement," the alien replied. "Your ancestors chose to forget, to become simple again rather than face judgment for their actions. But now the past has awakened." Before anyone could respond, explosions lit up the sky. 3 of the alien ships burst into flames. New vessels appeared, darker with red glowing lines across their hulls. "They found you," the alien emissary said, panic in its voice. "The vengeance fleet has come. They remember what humans did, even if you do not." The first bombs fell on Seoul as people ran screaming for shelter. Humanity's forgotten past had returned, bringing chaos and war with it. 1 month after the alien ships arrived, most major cities lay in ruins. The vengeance fleet had bombarded Earth relentlessly, targeting military installations first, then infrastructure. Millions died in the initial attacks. Gia woke in an underground bunker outside what used to be Busan. Her head throbbed from the injury she'd suffered during the evacuation of Seoul. Around her, other survivors slept on makeshift beds. "You're finally awake," said a voice. Gia turned to see Captain Sun Choi sitting nearby, cleaning a strange weapon. Unlike standard military gear, this gun glowed with a faint blue light similar to the artifact she'd found. "Where did you get that?" she asked, sitting up slowly. "The friendly aliens, the hegemony forces, gave us some weapons after the vengeance fleet attacked them too." Sun looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes. They weren't expecting the attack either. Gia remembered the chaos. How the emissary ship had been destroyed minutes after the warning. How the dark ships had begun systematically destroying Earth's defenses. "How bad is it?" she asked. Sun helped her stand. "Bad. But come see what we found while you were unconscious." He led her through narrow tunnels to a larger chamber where Emissary G, the alien who had first spoken to humanity, stood with several humans and other aliens around a holographic display. "Dr. Kim," the emissary nodded. "I am glad you survived. We need your help." The hologram showed the solar system with dozens of red dots representing enemy ships. "The Vengeance Fleet serves an ancient faction that never forgave humans for the War of 6 Sectors," explained the emissary. "They believe all humans must be eliminated before you regain your former power." An older man Gia recognized as Dr. Yun, a physicist, pointed to areas on Mars. "We've discovered something incredible. There are hidden facilities on Mars, built by ancient humans. The emissary's people helped us access one." The hologram changed to show massive underground hangars, containing ships and weapons. "Our ancestors built these," Sun said with awe in his voice. "But we don't know how to use them." "That's why we need you," the emissary told Gia. "The artifact you found was a key, and it responded to you specifically." "Why me?" Gia asked. "Genetic markers," said Dr. Yun. "Some humans carry genes from the warrior caste of the old empire. You're a direct descendant of their commanders." Gia felt dizzy with this information. "So what do we do now?" "We've arranged transport to Mars," Sun said. "A small team, you, me, Dr. Yun, and 2 of the emissary's people. If we can activate the old human defenses, we might have a chance." 3 days later, they launched in a small hegemony shuttle, slipping past the Vengeance fleet using stealth technology. The journey to Mars took only hours with the alien drive system. The Martian facility was massive, carved into an entire mountain range and hidden beneath the surface. As they walked through vast halls filled with dormant ships, Gia felt a strange familiarity. "This way," she said, not knowing how she knew where to go. They followed her to a central chamber with a console similar to the Antarctic artifact. When Gia placed her hand on it, the entire facility hummed to life. Lights activated along miles of corridors and machinery began moving. "The genetic key works," whispered one of the aliens. Suddenly, Gia gasped as information flooded her mind. Technical specifications, battle tactics, star maps, and memories that weren't hers. "I understand now," she said when the vision cleared. "Humans weren't just conquerors. We found something terrible at the edge of the galaxy. Something that threatens all life." "What did you find?" asked the emissary, looking concerned. "A consciousness that devours worlds. We called it the Void. We couldn't defeat it, so we created a prison for it and became its jailers. We hid on Earth, erasing our own memories to keep the prison's location secret." "And the signal from the artifact," Sun began. has started unlocking the prison, Gia finished. The Vengeance fleet isn't just attacking because of old grudges. Something else is controlling them. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. On the monitors, they watched as dark ships descended toward Mars. "They've found us," Dr. Yoon said, panic in his voice. "Get to the ships," Gia ordered with a confidence she didn't recognize in herself. Knowledge from the facility filled her mind. How to fly the ancient vessels, how to fight. "We can't let them destroy this place." As they ran toward the hangar, the first explosions rocked the facility. The race to recover humanity's forgotten legacy had truly begun. 3 ships escaped the Martian facility before it collapsed under the Vengeance fleet's attack. Gia, Sun, and their small crew fled deeper into the solar system, hiding among Jupiter's many moons. Their ship, an ancient human vessel they named Phoenix, was faster and more powerful than anything Earth had built in thousands of years. "How many people made it out?" Gia asked, looking at the damage reports. Tae, who had survived the evacuation from Earth, checked the communications. About 50 humans escaped on the 3 ships. Most of the hegemony allies made it to their vessels. 50 humans against a galaxy-wide threat, Sun said quietly. "Not great odds." "Our ancestors faced worse," Gia replied, surprising herself with her certainty. Since connecting to the Martian facility, memories that weren't hers surfaced regularly. Knowledge from long-dead commanders whose genes she carried. The small fleet gathered on Europa, using its thick ice to hide from enemy scans. The hegemony aliens revealed they had contacted their government requesting help, but the response was troubling. "Half the Hegemony Council believes destroying Earth completely is the only way to stop the Void's release," explained Juan, a hegemony scientist who had joined them. Unlike Emissary G, who had bluish skin, Juan's was a deep green with silver patterns. "The other half wants to help humans restore the prison." Dr. Yoon, who had survived with burns covering one side of his face, pulled up a star map on the ship's display. According to the data Gia downloaded, there are more facilities, not just on Mars but throughout the solar system and beyond. "The nearest one is on Titan," Gia said, pointing to Saturn's largest moon. "And it's not just a weapons cache, it's a communications hub that can reach other human outposts across the galaxy." They decided to split their forces. Sun would lead half their ships to Titan while Gia took the Phoenix to help defend what remained of Earth's forces. When Gia's group returned to Earth orbit, they found a desperate battle. The remaining Earth military, using a mix of human and hegemony technology, fought against overwhelming odds. "This is Dr. Gia Kim on the Phoenix," she broadcast. "We have control of ancient human technology. We're here to help." For a moment, there was silence. Then dozens of voices responded all at once. Military leaders, civilians in underground bunkers, even people fighting with makeshift weapons. "We thought everyone who went to Mars died," said a voice Gia recognized as General Heijun. "Where's Captain Choi?" "Getting reinforcements," Gia replied. "General, the Phoenix has weapons that can actually hurt these ships. Tell your forces to fall back and let us draw their fire." The Phoenix moved between Earth and the Vengeance fleet. Its ancient shields absorbed attacks that would have destroyed modern vessels instantly. Its weapons, energy beams that seemed to bend space itself, tore through enemy ships. But there were too many. For every ship they destroyed, 3 more appeared. "We can't hold them forever," Tae said as the shields weakened. "Where's Sun?" As if in answer, a massive energy pulse rippled across space. Every ship in the Vengeance fleet suddenly lost power, drifting helplessly. The Titan facility, Gia realized. Sun did it. Hours later, Sun's ships returned. His face appeared on their screen, tired but triumphant. "The communication hub worked," he explained. "I sent a signal to every human outpost in the galaxy. The automated defenses are activating. And more importantly, we've made contact with others." "Others?" Gia asked. The screen split to show another face. Human, but with subtle differences. Her eyes were larger, skin slightly luminescent. "I am Commander Doyen of the Hidden Fleet," the woman said. We are the descendants of humans who remembered. For 5,000 years we've maintained watch at the edges of the Void's prison, waiting for this day. Hope spread through Gia's crew for the first time. They weren't alone, but their celebration was short-lived. Alarms blared as new ships appeared, not part of the Vengeance fleet, but hegemony warships. Dr. Kim, came a cold voice over the communication system. I am High Admiral Lee of the Hegemony Strategic Force. Your actions have accelerated the Void's awakening. By authority of the Council, I am here to sterilize this system, to burn away the infection before it spreads. As the massive hegemony, battleships moved into position around Earth, Gia knew the real war had just begun. Not just for humanity's survival, but for the entire galaxy. The Phoenix led a desperate escape from Earth as the hegemony battleships opened fire. Not targeting humans or even the Vengeance fleet's disabled ships, but the planet itself. Massive energy weapons carved glowing lines across continents. They're trying to crack the planet, Juan explained, horror in his voice. They believe destroying Earth will somehow stop the Void. We can't fight the entire hegemony, Sun said, watching helplessly as explosions bloomed across Earth's surface. Commander Doyen's face appeared on their screen. We don't need to fight them. We need to show them the truth. All ships, follow. My coordinates. The hidden fleet, 12 sleek vessels that seemed to bend light around them, formed up around the Phoenix and its small group of survivors. With a flash that momentarily blinded everyone, they jumped beyond the solar system. When Gia could see again, the view screen showed unfamiliar stars. Where are we? The edge of what your ancestors called the Silence, Doyen replied. The buffer zone between normal space and the Void's prison. They approached what looked like empty space, but sensors showed something massive hiding just beyond normal perception. As they drew closer, reality itself seemed to bend and stretch. The watchtower, Doyen said reverently. For 5,000 years we've maintained it, waiting for this day. The watchtower was like nothing Gia had ever seen. Not quite a space station, not quite a ship. Parts of it seemed to exist in multiple places at once, its architecture defying normal physics. Inside, Doyen led them to a vast chamber where dozens of humans like her worked at stations, monitoring what looked like tears in reality itself. These are the Void's attempts to break through, she explained, pointing to dark spots on their displays. For generations we've contained them, but they're growing stronger. When your artifact activated, it accelerated the decay. Why did our ancestors hide all this? Sun asked. Why make humanity forget? An older man approached them. Unlike Doyen and her people, he looked fully human, though ancient, his face deeply lined. Because knowledge of the Void is its pathway into our dimension, he said, his voice surprisingly strong. I am Quan, last of the original Guardians. Gia felt drawn to him immediately. Something in his features reminded her of her own grandfather. 5,000 years ago, I led the council that decided humanity's fate, Quan continued. We discovered the Void during our expansion. It had already consumed 12 galaxies before ours. We realized it was drawn to consciousness, particularly to minds that knew about it. So the more people who knew about the Void, Sun began, the stronger its connection to our reality, Quan finished. We tried fighting it conventionally. We lost billions. Finally, we discovered we could create a prison, a space between spaces, but maintaining it required constant vigilance. And forgetting, Gia said, understanding dawning. If most humans forgot the Void existed, it would weaken the Void's connection to our dimension. Quan nodded. Most of humanity chose to return to Earth and forget. A small group, the ancestors of Doyen's people, volunteered to remember and maintain the watch. Quan led them deeper into the watchtower, to its very core. There, suspended in what looked like liquid light, floated a small black object, similar to the artifact Gia had found, but darker, pulsing with malevolent energy. The key, Quan said, the counterpart to your artifact. Together, they can either strengthen the prison or destroy it completely. And the hegemony? Sun asked. Why are they trying to destroy Earth? Fear, Juan answered before Quan could. Half the council believes the legends that say if humanity remembers its past, the void will break free completely. Are they right? Gia asked. Quan's expression grew grave. They're not entirely wrong. The prison is failing. The void has been influencing minds across the galaxy for centuries, preparing for this moment. The Vengeance Fleet wasn't acting from old grudges. They were already under the void's control. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the watchtower. On the monitors, Gia watched in horror as dozens of hegemony battleships appeared, led by High Admiral Lee's flagship. How did they find us? Sun demanded. They didn't follow us, Doyen said grimly. They followed the void's call. Look at their ships. Gia squinted at the screen. Dark tendrils seemed to be growing across the hegemony vessels like living shadows. They're already infected, Quan whispered, and they've brought the void right to its prison's door. The watchtower shook as the corrupted hegemony ships opened fire. Black energy beams, nothing like their normal weapons, struck the station's defenses. The void is using them, Quan said, steadying himself against a console. It's learned to take control of advanced technology. That's why your ancestors abandoned their empire. They realized their own weapons could be turned against them. Gia looked at the artifact she had carried from Earth, then at its dark twin floating in the core. What happens if we bring them together? Either the prison will be sealed more strongly than ever, Quan replied, or it will shatter completely. That's a big difference, Sun said, checking the weapons on the Phoenix. How do we know which will happen? Quan turned to Gia. It depends. On the carrier, on you. The artifacts respond to intent. If your will is strong enough, you can channel the energy to strengthen the prison. Another explosion rocked the station. On the screens, they watched dark tendrils spreading from ship to ship in the hegemony fleet. We don't have much time, Doyen warned. The void is growing stronger by the minute. Gia made her decision. I'll try to seal it, but we need to stop those ships first, or they'll destroy the watchtower before I can finish. Sun nodded. The Phoenix and the Hidden Fleet will draw their fire. Juan, can you broadcast a warning to any hegemony ships that aren't fully corrupted yet? The green-skinned alien nodded. I'll try. They split up, Sun leading the defense while Gia, Quan, and Doyun went to the core chamber. As they made their way through the twisting corridors of the watchtower, parts of the station began to flicker in and out of reality. The barrier between dimensions is weakening, Quan explained. We must hurry. In the core, Gia approached the floating dark artifact. As she got closer, voices filled her head, promises of power, knowledge, freedom. Don't listen, Doyen warned. The void will tell you anything to make you release it. Gia's hands trembled as she raised her artifact toward its twin. What do I do? Remember who you are, Quan said simply. Remember who we were meant to be. The battle raged outside. The Phoenix twisted through enemy fire, its ancient weapons tearing through corrupted ships, but there were too many, and the darkness kept spreading. In the command center, Sun watched as their defenses failed one by one. We can't hold them much longer, he shouted into his communicator. In the core, Gia closed her eyes. The voices grew, louder, showing her visions of Earth restored, of humanity ruling the galaxy once more. All she had to do was turn the key differently, release instead of imprison. Then other memories came, not of conquest, but of sacrifice. Her ancestors hadn't forgotten their past out of shame or fear, but out of love for all life. They chose to become less than they were to protect everything else. We were guardians, she whispered, not conquerors. She thrust her artifact into the swirling energy field. When it touched its dark twin, blinding light erupted from the core, shooting through the watchtower and out into space. The light engulfed the corrupted ships, burning away the dark tendrils. On the Phoenix's bridge, Sun shielded his eyes as the wave passed harmlessly through their ship. When he could see again, the enemy fleet drifted powerless. Back in the core, Gia collapsed to her knees. Where the two artifacts had been, a single crystal now pulsed with steady light. You did it, Doyen said with awe. The prison is sealed. Not just sealed, Quan added, studying the readings. The void is contained in a new way. It can't influence minds anymore. When Jia rejoined Sun on the Phoenix, the remaining hegemony ships had withdrawn to a safe distance. Admiral Lee's face appeared on their screen, his expression a mixture of confusion and wonder. What happened? He asked. The darkness. It was in my mind, but now it's gone. The threat is contained, Jia explained. Not through destruction, but through understanding. In the days that followed, the truth spread throughout the galaxy. Humanity's forgotten history was revealed, not as conquerors, but as those who had sacrificed their advancement to protect all life. The Hegemony Council voted to welcome humans back into galactic society. On Earth, the rebuilding began. With aid and help from the Hegemony and the Hidden Fleet, cities rose from ruins, now incorporating technology from humanity's forgotten golden age. Jia stood on a hill overlooking the new Sol, watching ships from dozens of worlds landing at the spaceport. Sun joined her, carrying an old paper map. The first human embassy opens next week on the Hegemony homeworld, he said. They want you to be our ambassador. Jia looked at the stars beginning to appear in the evening sky. Our ancestors gave up everything to protect the galaxy. Now it's our turn to rejoin it, not to rule, but to help build something better. As night fell, lights from 1,000 ships twinkled overhead. Not invaders, but visitors, allies, and friends, all drawn to the world of humanity, the forgotten guardians, finally remembered.